Everything started normally at St. Mary Hospital. Ambulances bringing patients, Mike doing his routine job. Until a chemical weapon attack was launched on the emergency department. It would take 30 minutes for the hazmat team to arrive.
Clear the way!
But paramedic
Move
Mike
aside,
had
please.
20 years of Special Forces CBRN experience. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this powerful story, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. At the ambulance entrance of St. Mary Hospital in Chicago, 54-year-old Mike Thompson quietly waited for his 12-hour shift to begin. White paramedic uniform, worn but clean. The keys to his ambulance in his hand with his usual calm expression. Mike was one of St. Mary's most experienced paramedic staff. He had been working at the same hospital with the same ambulance for 9 years. Reliable, quiet, never complaining. But his young colleagues saw Mike differently. 25-year-old paramedic Jake whispered to Jenny beside him, "Uncle Mike is late again. Why is he still driving an ambulance at this age?" Jenny laughed. "Yeah, I wish he'd retire. When he moves this slowly, patients are at risk." Mike heard these kinds of conversations often, but he never responded. He'd just smile and focus on his work. Because nobody knew the truth. Mike Thompson had served in the United States Army Special Forces from 1985 to 2005. For 20 years, he had worked as a CBRN specialist in the world's most dangerous environments: Gulf War, Bosnia, Afghanistan, Iraq. He had specialized in chemical weapon attacks, biological warfare operations, and radiological contamination incidents. When he retired in 2005, he had PTSD. He was tired of constantly living under threat, chemical exposure, trauma. "I want to save lives, but not on the battlefield," he had said. And he had taken paramedic training and started at St. Mary Hospital. The first years were difficult. Civilian medicine was different. Not combat medicine, but patient care focused. But Mike had learned to love it. He was at peace. But people underestimated him because of his age. Chemical decontamination, biological warfare protocols, radiological exposure treatment. How did a paramedic know these things? And why could he work without any protective gear? The answer was hidden in his 20 years of Special Forces background. That Tuesday morning, Mike started his shift at 6 a.m. as usual. St. Mary Hospital was in one of Chicago's busy districts. An average of 50 to 60 ambulance calls came per day. Mike's partner, Jake, was a newly graduated paramedic. Energetic, excited, but inexperienced. "Mike, looks like it'll be busy today. 3 more ambulances in emergency," Jake said. "Normal. Are you ready?" "Of course. You just focus on driving." Jake thought Mike was slow, but Mike's calmness actually came from 20 years of crisis management experience. The first call came at 7:30. Heart attack, downtown. Routine call. While Mike drove the ambulance, Jake prepared the equipment. "Mike, why are you always so calm? Don't you ever get excited?" "Jake, panic doesn't help patients. Calm thinking does." "But sometimes you're too slow." Mike smiled. What Jake didn't know, Mike's slowness actually was 20 years of tactical precision. They successfully transported the heart attack patient. The routine day continued. At 14:20, the second call came, but this was different. All units, code red emergency at St. Mary Hospital. Chemical exposure in emergency department. Multiple casualties. Hazmat team requested. Mike's heart stopped. Chemical exposure at St. Mary. Jake was panicking. Mike, our hospital, what are we going to do? Mike, for the first time in 9 years, switched to his old mode. Jake, calm down. We're going back fast. He turned the ambulance around, turned on sirens, but his mind was elsewhere. Chemical exposure, multiple casualties. This wasn't accidental. This was an attack. When they arrived at St. Mary Hospital, there was chaos. The emergency department had been evacuated. Medical staff outside without protective gear.
Emergency Coordinator Dr. Lisa Chen saw Mike. Mike, it's very bad. There was a chemical attack in the emergency department. 15 patients affected, 8 medical staff. What chemical? We don't know. Symptoms: respiratory distress, skin irritation, neurological symptoms. Mike's 20 years of experience sounded alarms. These symptoms resembled organophosphate compounds, nerve agent. Where's the hazmat team? They'll be here in 30 minutes. What do we do meanwhile? Mike looked around. Affected patients, panicked staff, no protective equipment, and most importantly, potential contamination spreading. Jake stood beside him. Mike, this is very dangerous. We can't go in. But Mike had seen worse situations for 20 years. Dr. Chen, I need to tell you something. What? I'm a chemical warfare specialist, retired Special Forces CBRN specialist. Dr. Chen was shocked. You were in Special Forces? 20 years. Chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear. I can help you in this situation. But there's no equipment. I don't need equipment. I have training. Mike turned to Jake. Jake, bring all the decontamination supplies from the ambulance. All of them. Then to Dr. Chen. In what order did you evacuate the affected patients? By severity. Wrong. It should be by contamination risk. Now listen to me. Mike, with his 20 years of Special Forces experience, turned the civilian hospital into a chemical attack scene. First, contamination assessment. Mike entered the emergency department without protective gear. Jake panicked. Mike, there's no protective equipment. Jake, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know breathing techniques. Mike entered the emergency department. Chemical smell, distinctive, definitely organophosphate, but low concentration, short exposure, survivable. Second, triage by contamination level. Mike examined the affected patients. With 20 years of experience, he determined which patient was priority. These 3 patients need immediate decontamination. These 5 are delayed. These 7 are minimal. Dr. Chen, how did you make decisions so quickly? Exposure symptoms, timing, location analysis, Special Forces training. Third, field decontamination setup. Mike set up an improvised decontamination station in the hospital parking area. Water source, drainage, contaminated item collection, clean/dirty zones. Jake, bring those water hoses here. Dr. Chen, we need clean scrubs and towels. Fourth, decontamination procedures. Mike personally decontaminated each patient. Skin exposure removal, clothing disposal, medical evaluation. 20 years of muscle memory had never been forgotten. Patient, keep your eyes open. I'm going to make direct water contact. You'll feel burning. It's normal. Fifth, medical treatment coordination. Mike explained chemical exposure treatment protocols to Dr. Chen. Atropine dosage, 2 milligrams IV, repeat if necessary. Prologoxime if available. Supportive care for respiratory distress. Dr. Chen was amazed. You're not a doctor, but how do you know these things? 20 years of field medicine, chemical warfare environments. 25 minutes later, the hazmat team arrived, but Mike had already resolved the situation. Hazmat team leader, Captain Rodriguez, saw Mike. You handled this without protective equipment? Yes, Special Forces, retired, CBRN specialist. What's your assessment? Low-grade organophosphate attack, probable sarin derivative. All patients decontaminated, no further contamination risk. Captain Rodriguez was impressed.
That's professional level assessment. Your background? Mike went to his ambulance next to Jake, opened a secret compartment. Inside were items he had kept for 9 years: Special Forces badges, CBRN certificates, medical training documents. Master Sergeant Mike Thompson, U.S. Army Special Forces, retired CBRN Specialist, 1985-2005. Captain Rodriguez saluted. "Sir, I didn't recognize you. I'm just a paramedic now." But now everything had changed. Dr. Chen approached Mike. "Mike, you're incredible. You saved 15 people's lives." "Just did my job." "But you're a paramedic, not Special Forces." "I'm both." Jake was amazed. "Mike, you really were in Special Forces?" 20 years. "And you never told me?" "You didn't ask, and I prefer civilian life." Hospital Director Dr. Martinez came. "Mr. Thompson, on behalf of St. Mary Hospital, thank you. Would you consider a security consultant position? I'm happy as a paramedic. But your skills will be used when needed, like today." FBI agent Sarah Williams arrived to investigate the attack. "Mr. Thompson, we need your expertise. This was domestic terrorism." "Agent, I'm retired. But your knowledge of chemical warfare is available for emergency situations like this one." Media came, but Mike refused interviews. "I just helped patients. That's my job." But everything changed at the hospital. Young doctors approached Mike respectfully. They addressed him as Sir. Jake said, "Mike, I'm sorry I underestimated you." "Jake, you knew me as you knew me. I'm still the same person. But now I know you're also a hero. I'm a paramedic who sometimes uses old skills." Weeks later, Mike returned to normal routine, but the atmosphere was completely different. Patients recognized Mike. "Aren't you the paramedic who stopped the chemical attack?" "I just helped medical staff." But Mike's life had found perfect balance. Paramedic Mike, caring for patients in daily life. Master Sergeant Mike, life-saving in emergency situations. Both identities, same person. The past he had hidden for 9 years was now integrated with the present. St. Mary Hospital was no longer just a medical facility. It had become a place protected by a chemical warfare specialist. But in daily routine, he was still the same Mike, driving the ambulance, helping patients, training Jake with a calm voice. The only difference, nobody thought he was too old anymore, because real experience comes with age. And Mike Thompson, with 20 years Special Forces plus 9 years paramedic experience, had become Chicago's most valuable emergency responder. Jake asked Mike one day, "Mike, do you miss the Special Forces days?" Mike, sitting in the ambulance drinking coffee, replied, "Jake, I miss the brotherhood. I miss the clear mission, but I don't miss the killing." An ambulance call came. Routine heart attack. Mike, starting the ambulance, looked at Jake. "But I found something better here. I save lives instead of taking them. That's a better mission." Jake smiled. "And you're really good at it."
20 years of practice, Jake. Different kind, but same goal: protect people. As they drove through Chicago streets, Mike felt complete. Special Forces Mike, trained to handle the worst. Paramedic Mike, dedicated to healing the hurt. One man, two purposes, single heart. And in the back of the ambulance, Jake watched his partner with newfound respect, knowing that sometimes the most extraordinary people wear the most ordinary uniforms. 3 months later, the city of Chicago officially recognized Mike's heroism, but he didn't attend the ceremony. "I was just doing my job," he told the reporter who called. Instead, he was at St. Mary, starting another 12-hour shift. Jake climbed into the passenger seat. "Mike, you know there's a documentary crew that wants to follow us around?" Mike started the engine. "What did you tell him?" "I told them we're too busy saving lives to make movies about it." Mike smiled. "Good answer." Their radio crackled. "Unit 47, we have a multi-vehicle accident on the Dan Ryan. Multiple casualties, possible hazmat situation." Jake looked at Mike. "Hazmat again?" Probably just spilled diesel fuel, Mike said calmly, but he was already running through CBRN protocols in his head, but we'll be ready either way. As they drove toward the scene, sirens wailing, Jake realized something profound. He wasn't just riding with a paramedic or even an ex-Special Forces soldier. He was riding with a guardian, someone who had dedicated his entire adult life to one simple principle: protect people, no matter what. And in the world full of uncertainty, that was exactly the kind of person Chicago needed behind the wheel of an ambulance. Mike Thompson, paramedic, master sergeant, guardian angel in scrubs. The radio crackled again. Unit 47, ETA? Mike keyed the mic. 3 minutes out. We're ready for whatever you've got. And he meant every word.